Good morning. Well, I've got 4 weeks, 5 days, 4 hours, and 32 minutes left. And when people ask me, I say, I did not know it would be this hard to be ALA president. So it's not a Republican issue, it's not a Democrat issue, it's not a Libertarian issue, it's a library issue. And this is the focus and the value that we bring to this discussion. I don't care what my interview is. As Emily taught me, I bridge right back to the fight. So if we're talking about children's services and books being made into children's movies, I will say at the end of it, well, we really want to have money to buy materials. So let's talk about what's happening in the legislature. So I never miss an opportunity to talk about this. People will not get on the elevator with me. Let's just say that. On behalf of the association and its leaders, I'm so pleased to welcome you to Legislative Day, and everyone's calling out their state. So where's Texas? I'm usually with Texas. They're probably in their own, we're very liberal in Texas. So we have a lot of issues in Texas right now. They're looking for a bathroom is what they're doing in Texas right now. So all of that notwithstanding, this is our 43rd annual National Legislative Day. We're here to fight for libraries, which coincidentally is the name of our single funnel page that the Washington office has made for us, which makes our lives a great deal easier and very focused to find what we need to fight both at the local level, state, regional, and at the national level. Obviously, you know, the president has proposed eliminating IMLS as an agency. Its total is $213 million, which is only slightly more than the cost that it takes to keep part of the president's family in New York. So I use that all the time. That's a $183 million tag. I do not begrudge anyone's safety and security, but that's an interesting juxtaposition. Major Owens did the very best job of that. Who remembers Major Owens, our librarian in the legislature, who would parse out for us which fighter jet had just been purchased and how the cost of a fighter jet was the cost of federal funding for libraries. And it really wakes people up when you see that kind of relationship drawn between how people spend money and how we like them to spend money on libraries. We know that, and I'm going to read this because I think it's an important statement. The funding from IMLS and also the funding that is leveraged through our federal agency funding, which for me is a huge issue, makes our libraries transformative environments, vibrant, innovative places that are and enable us to be responsive to community needs. And typically when I'm speaking with legislators, I mention their people as constituents, and I also mention library users as constituents rather than patrons, so that they will be reminded these are people who support them at various stages of their work. The funding that we know supports the whole concept that libraries mean business and the kinds of services that we provide for veterans, children, students, accreditation programs for workforce programs in the country, and in a vast majority of the states, it's the match for digital resource funding, which is a major issue for us in Texas and I know elsewhere as well. And of course, libraries promote digital literacy. So if anyone says to me, do libraries still have books anymore? Yes, don't even let them finish the sentence. But we are a hybrid environment, and we're here to talk about literacy, whether it's paper or digital literacy. So we know that libraries truly transform, and we know there are approximately 120,000 libraries in the country, and in some way federal funding or federal support, however it's parsed out, supports all of us. We're not just fighting for money, though, and I would remind delegations that when we go to the Capitol, the florists go to talk about rules and regulations for flowers that will ultimately end up as profit for them. We go for our constituents. We go to bring people to the notion of what we do and what a value we are, and as we all know, what a wonderful return on investment. We fight for our core values, and as you well know, a number of our core values are at risk now for all types of libraries. And that results in our fight for an open and free internet. And I often point to what I call the perfect storm of the majority of federal, state, and local agencies who have all or most of their materials online at a time when we are taking away the ability to access those. And I use the very good Pew statistic, which talks about the fact that 25%, if not a little more, of the people in our country do not have access to technology, and another percent of our population doesn't have access to the kind of technology. So we're not dinosaurs. We are an integral part of the economy, as the Washington office has so clearly stated in the papers that we currently have on veterans and the library's mean business content. We are currently also fighting for a balanced look at copyright. And I don't do copyright interviews because I consider it one of the more difficult areas to talk about. So I've given all that to Jim, who will be president, and he's a copyright specialist, as are the people at the Washington office. So we are in for a fight just to explain to people what our role is in this variety of areas we're fighting for. Science, climate, whatever it is you're talking about right now, we can bring that back to what libraries do and what libraries provide. So whether you're here in Washington or whether you're watching this on the webcast, do we know yet? Is the webcast working? Or whether or not you watch this a little bit later as we start. Is it working? Yeah. Oh, hey, welcome, country. We are working toward equal access to information for people in this country and elsewhere 24/7. So we really want to focus on the variety of roles that we have, and I think the word 21st century is hackneyed, but I still continue to use it, but I just use as many pieces of data as I can to make this article important for people. Make any article, make any interview. So before we bring up our speaker, I'd like to introduce someone, Lori Rivas. Lori? Come on up, I believe. Lori is the winner of the 2017 White House Conference on Library and Information Services, or what we call the WHCLIST Award. It was established in 1991, and like all WHCLIST Award winners, Lori is not an expert librarian, though that might be changing. Are you going to go to library school? Yes. Good. You, however, have been on the front line of libraries since 2010, I believe, and that was when her hometown of Santa Clarita in California proposed contracting with a private company for the management of their public libraries. Now I'm going to read this. It sounds like you're saying it. So as a mother for her homeschooled children, Lori saw her public library as an indispensable part of her children's education. She was galvanized for action to keep her local public libraries truly public. In response to the proposed contract, Lori helped organize a campaign that gained national attention. You secured a private audience with your elected leaders, always a risk. You testified before her state legislature, and she's been interviewed by a number of outlets, including Democracy Dies in Darkness, Washington Post, my favorite statement of the day. She's campaigned for library services during local elections, and you've written a great deal to local media. Her advocacy work eventually led her to become a library consultant for Southern California Library Cooperative, where she helped implement LSTA grants and learned a lot about the value of IMLS funding. Please join me in congratulating Lori Rivas for receiving the WHCLIST Award. Lori? Am I supposed to have an award? I'm taking it home. if she doesn't get it. So now we're supposed to pose for pictures with this imaginary award. Come here. It's very real.
Okay.
And then we'll let you say a few words. That's good. Lori?
Thank you very much for welcoming me into your community of radical public servants. I'm honored to be here.
And I have jobs. Thank you so much. I just told Lori I have jobs if she's interested in coming to Texas. I would now like to introduce our keynote speaker, who is a fierce defender of democratic principles, Hina Shamsi of the American Civil Liberties Union. Hina is the director of ACLU's National Security Project, which is dedicated to ensuring that U.S. national policies and practices in security are consistent with the Constitution, civil liberties, and human rights. So right now, full-time job. As a lawyer with the ACLU for more than 10 years, Hina has litigated cases upholding the freedoms of speech and association and challenging targeted killings, torture, unlawful detention, and post-9/11 discrimination against racial and religious minorities. Hina's work includes a focus on the intersection of national security and counterterrorism policies with international human rights and humanitarian law. Before coming to the ACLU, Hina was the acting director of the Law and Security Program, Human Rights First. She's also served as a senior advisor to the UN on extrajudicial executions. What coursework did you take for that? That's... There you go. Right answer. ACLU, as you know, is no stranger to ALA. We've worked with them throughout the years, and the phrase that the Washington office put in here, because they know, worked at the hip with ACLU back more than a decade in a fight to protect personal privacy in the U.S. Privacy Act. ALA and ACLU are going to begin working again very closely a little later this year when a key provision of the Federal Intelligence Surveillance Act, which is Section 702 of FICA, is set to expire. Hina is a powerful voice for protecting privacy. She appears regularly in the media and has been quoted as a national security expert by numerous outlets, including the failing New York Times, which is, I think, at an all-time high right now for people reading it, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, and Reuters. Hina has appeared on MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, NPR, ABC News, and the BBC. She's the author and co-author of numerous publications and has monitored and reported on the military commissioners and issues at Guantanamo Bay. She's also a lecturer in law at Columbia, where she teaches a course in international human rights. We are honored to have Hina Shamsi with us today. Please join me in welcoming her to the podium, and we will exit the podium, I think.